Anyone that's telling you that you can't create your future, they're robbing you of your dignity. They're robbing you of the God that you believe resides in you, or the God that you believe in. And they're enslaving your soul if they say that you cannot create your future. Evolve or dissolve. The future is in our hands, it's in your hands, and it's in my hands. Collectively and individually, I believe, and for the people coming to a meeting like this, with the type of what we're being shown in the spiritual, in the financial, in the emotional, in the physical levels, collectively, we could create a future far greater than we could ever imagine. Thank you very much.
I organized a national tour for him this last May. Dr. Niels Harrod, we're in the not only the newspaper, but us personally, we're very involved in supporting, you know, heroes like you and Cynthia McKinney, and you know, so it's a real treat, you know, growing up as a Canadian kid. You idol the hockey players when you're a child, and then we go in. No, but it is a real treat because there isn't that many out there of your status. So thank you again. Okay, Dominic, you okay? Yeah. Okay. Mr. Celente, as the global economy continues its downward trajectory, how will it specifically affect Canada?
The equation is quite simple. If Europeans and Americans don't buy Chinese product, China doesn't manufacture, nor does Indonesia or Vietnam. And there's a terrible slowdown going on in Europe, and it's only going to get worse. And that's not even coming from people like me who know it's going to get worse, but people like the IMF that are saying it's going to get much worse. And then when you put on top of that the measures that they're taking, the austerity measures, that's even making it worse, because how are you going to grow an economy by taxing people more, cutting out jobs, and taking income away from them? So you're going to make it even worse. And Europe, of course, is the second importer of Chinese product. And then you have the United States, and you look at the numbers as well. And the imports are coming way down in the United States, Chinese goods as well. And then you look at China, and you look at their exports. They're down, and their imports are down. So, if Europeans and Americans aren't buying, Chinese, Indonesians, Vietnamese aren't making, the Canadians, who are they going to sell their natural resources to? Who are the Australians going to sell their natural resources to? And again, if you listen to the other people as well, the ministers of Australia, they're saying things like, quote, the commodities bubble is over, it's burst. So that's coming from the Australians. And then the same thing happens in Chile, as I mentioned, and Bolivia, and where any kind of country is Brazil that export natural resources. So the natural resource level that's the last one that gets hit, but it will get hit.
Thank you. In September, Canada kicked out Iranian diplomats and closed its Iranian embassy. As the only country to do so, do you see Canada taking a leadership role in escalating pressure on Iran to stop developing its nuclear power?
I see Canada, just like the rest of the NATO countries and US allies, doing it all together in one way or another, but all facilitating it in their own way. Nobody taking the lead, but everybody doing their part to make it more difficult for the Iranians. And what has really been missed, and you only could say so much in so much amount of time, is that the United States and Europe and NATO has already declared war on Iran. You look in the last week, the Iranian rial dropped 60% in a week and a half. It's an economic war. Suppose somebody closed off Canada and you couldn't sell anything and you couldn't buy anything. And your loonie devalued to nothing. So everything that is coming in, it's costing everybody where they can't afford it. How would you feel about it? Particularly when you didn't do anything to anybody else.
Of course.
So Canada is just one of the minions in the whole.
I agree, and with our esteemed Prime Minister, Mr. Harper, and what's your? I don't know if he's reached a level where he could get one of your nicknames. I mean, like Mitch Romney, but I don't know if you have a nickname for Stephen Harper. But taking a couple weeks ago, he just got. I'm sure you can come up with a couple. Henry Kissinger gave him a World Statesman Award a couple of weeks ago. You know, we cringe, of course, here, but because of this more leadership role under this particular government, you know, it's sort of Romney-light almost with Harper. Do you think that Canada could be a potential target for a terrorism or false flag event because of our increased role?
Of course they can. You can't attack other countries and not expect them to fight back.
Yes.
I mean, the arrogance of it. Look what's going on with Libya in the United States. And this whole thing about this Benghazi incident.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I'm offended by it in the sense that they kill an ambassador. Hey, it's a big deal, you know. Again, they're better than us.
Yes.
But how about all the soldiers that get slaughtered?
Sure.
You know, how about Tammy White that gets a bullet in the brain from the sniper in Afghanistan?
Yeah.
Or Jose Rodriguez gets his legs blown off in a roadside bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, or Todd Jones who gets, you know, he gets killed by a rocket-propelled grenade or an Afghan soldier killing him. How come there's no big deal about that? How come there wasn't enough security? How come the President and Secretary of State don't show up for their funerals? How come the media doesn't cover it? You know why? Because they're all better than everybody else. Henry Kissinger giving an award? What, the Jack the Ripper Award? I mean, come on.
What separates TRI from other trend forecasters, enabling it to make such accurate predictions?
A number of reasons. One, we have no agenda. We only give the diagnosis whether you like it or not. And we're beholden to no one. And the other one is, a big part of it is our methodology, where we look at so many different fields. So, again, all things are connected. And what we do is keep making the connections. So, an economist, number one, they're usually working for a university or a firm, so they're beholden to those two institutions. And number two, they're only looking at a basket of statistics. And the world's a lot bigger than that. Mm-hmm. So they don't have all the pieces to put together. They're looking one-dimensionally. And each discipline only looks at their discipline of interest. I'll never forget, I was doing how to forecast trends for a major Swiss company. And I'm teaching them how to go through magazines and newspapers in those days before the internet, and how to find trend information. And I could see it was going nowhere, so we take a break, and go to the bathroom. This guy corners me, and he said, "Listen," he said, "you know, if they catch us reading the work like this, you know, they'll think we're goofing off. Isn't it? We just really want to look at youth trends. Isn't there any way we could just look at that?" I said, "Of course not." I said, "You know, if you're going to learn how to play the piano, you have to practice, you know." But they look at reading and learning as though you're goofing off. So they're all into the narrow box, and that's what makes us so different. I dedicate my life to reading.
And for you, it's a buffet. You're up at the buffet.
Everything.
You're eating it every day.
Everything.
Brilliant. In October 2010, you predicted revolts across Europe in response to austerity measures. In North America, the biggest demonstrations and protests related to the Occupy movement. As Occupy has failed to gain any lasting traction or affect meaningful systematic change, do you see another movement coalescing in North America similar to those in Europe, or is it just a matter of wait your turn, it's coming?
I would have thought the Occupy movements in North America and in the world would have gone a lot further. I was taken aback by their lack of momentum.
Yes.
They came out of nothing and they grew so quickly. I thought that they were going to continue to extend. It's hard to say, and I just don't know. But I do know that you see there's something going on in America that's different, for example, in Europe. When you go back to the Great Depression, you used to see all those bread lines, right? You don't see bread lines anymore. Because they have people on food stamps. They have plastic food stamps.
47 million.
47 million.
Yeah.
So they quiet them down like that, and it doesn't make bad pictures,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah.
So that's why you're not seeing it. And then the other thing, when you take Europe, you know, Europe's tight. You know, the cities, the people are together. In the United States, everybody's spread out. So you don't have that coalescing force. So I don't think so. I don't see something happening quickly.
Okay. And that being the case, in your esteemed opinion, what would you need? What would need to be done to organize a credible opposition that stands a chance of gaining power and affecting change? What are the main issues that might galvanize a new movement, and what organizations do you see possibly helping lead the charge?
I see no organizations leading the charge. And as I said today, you know, I only bring it back to the human spirit. You know, I've been at this for 32 years. And what happens is that any new organization that really starts to build, they become corrupt like the others in so many different ways. They become everything that they hated. And that's why I believe that the way out, the galvanizing movement, is number one in this last Trends Journal that we just put out. My motto is stay home, don't vote. And I believe that if 40% or less of the population turns out to vote, we could call it an invalid election and demand a new system. And again, having worked in politics, I just don't see it happening to develop in a new way, in the sense that the institutions in their very nature are corrupt. And that's why I believe in direct democracy. If it's good for the Swiss, it could be good enough for us. Because they haven't had a war there since, what, 1847? They like money a lot. Food's real good. Good place to visit.
And the Banking International.
Banking's international. Everybody has guns there. They don't shoot each other.
Sure, the bankers.
You know, so something there's working. So let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
That's what I look at.
What is your forecast when a new world currency does come into play? And have you considered, in your opinion, with China and Russia in particular significantly increasing their gold inventory, do you think it may be possible for a BRIC coalition currency, with gold being part of a basket of currencies? Do you see that actually possibly manifesting and challenging the euro and the dollar as they decline? Like, what's your take on
it's very difficult. You know, I agree that something like that could happen, but something else could happen. And there could be a basket of currencies that would include the euro, the yuan, the yen, the ruble, the rupee, and gold as a foundation under it. So gold being part of a basket of currencies, rather than, I think they're going to, I don't know, but my gut feeling is, again, there are so many forces that could change it. For example, I would say, off the top of my head, that's the way I would see it happen, because it would be in the best interest of all the traders. It would be the best interest in the world trade if there was one new basket of currencies without the dollar being the reserve currency. Number two, it doesn't work because look what's going on. The United States is instigating a war against Japan and China. I forgot to mention that today. And the United States is increasing its forces in the Pacific and the Asian region. So then when you see that happening, then you could see, yes, the BRICS could have their own, because they're not going to want to be part of, you're going to see an axis and an ally kind of situation.
A former Prime Minister, Pierre Trudeau, 1968, once compared Canada and the U.S. to the flea to the elephant. And then we just ride the elephant. And going to your earlier comments, despite Canada's recognition by the mainstream, by the prostitutes, as being one of the more stable banking systems, When things do go down, is there any possible way that Canada, with its banking system, it's set up at the same template as everybody else, but that we might fare better than anyone else?
I think Canada will fare better for a variety of reasons, population being one of them, maybe 30 million people.
Yeah.
And you have property bubbles, however, that are going to burst.
Mm-hmm.
But the banking system, even as it is, it's still much better shape than the rest of them.
Yes.
So I don't think Canada is going to feel it as bad. And also, you know, you have more opportunities here to be more self-sustaining just by the very nature of the people and the demographics. And so I don't think it's going to be as bad here as a lot of other places.
Okay. And lastly, as you are the trend seer, considering current trends and historic cycles, where will humanity be at the end of this century?
As I said, it's either going to evolve or dissolve. You know, nobody knows.
Yeah.
But I will say this: if we go to war against Iran, it's the beginning of World War III. They say the generals keep fighting the last wars. So when you look at World War, you go throughout history, you see it all the time. You know, World War I, they began fighting on horseback. World War II, you know, was trench warfare. They still thought they were fighting trench warfare. Airplanes came into the picture. If there's a war against Iran, it's going to be the most hellish situation that humanity has ever faced. It'll be wars of weapons of mass destruction. It'll be suitcase-sized nuclear weapons. If Israel attacks Iran, the Middle East is already exploding. Yemen, Bahrain, Syria, Libya, Tunisia, Egypt, Jordan, Afghanistan, and of course all the destabilization up in the other stands as well, Kazakhstan. So what happens is now you're going to have a whole region, Lebanon, you're going to have the whole region at war instantly. It doesn't stay contained. And this is an age, one of my books, Trends 2000, I wrote, was the breakup of the former Soviet Union happened. And I wrote about all the weapons of mass destruction, the suitcase-sized nuclear weapons. Stuff was flying into the black market. They were emptying out the joint. This stuff is still around. And then plus the new developments beyond that. So you want to poison a reservoir? You want to set off a dirty bomb somewhere in a metropolitan city? Oh, won't it be beautiful in Vancouver with a suitcase-sized nuclear weapon going off? You think there'll be any recovering from that?
No.
It'll be hell.
Yeah.
And that in this last Trends Journal, we did a lot about the Iran-Israel influence in the United States elections. What an outrage! What an outrage! And nobody said anything.
Yeah.
Now, could you imagine other countries, America, going into any other country, foreign power, going in and trying to dictate the election? So what we did with the Iranian situation and the Israeli situation was to make the point that when Netanyahu got up there, we have great illustrations in the journal of Netanyahu drawing that red line across that cartoon bomb. They should have grabbed his straitjacket and grabbed the guy off.
Sure.
What kind of imbecile is ranting like this?
Yeah.
Comparing Iran to Al-Qaeda, international terrorists. Not a word. Yet, the head of the UN, he made sure that he went to Ahmadinejad before Ahmadinejad gave his speech and reprimanded him and told him to make sure he stays in line and to keep the vitriol down. But then a lunatic like Netanyahu gets out there. Yeah. That was unprecedented to see a grown man behaving like a lunatic.
Yeah.
So you can see the level of lunacy and where it can go like that. They started a war against Iraq for weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist, with baloney little phony things that colon suck up no cojones power sold to the world at the UN. That's how easy it starts. That you can have clowns take worlds to war, and everybody bows and scrapes.
Yeah. And it's not out there too much, but Iran is a very young country. 65% of their population is under the age of 33. You know,
these are the Persians.
They're
not going
people.
anywhere.
Yeah.
They fought Iraq for 8 years. They lost 1 million people. They didn't give up 1 inch of ground. A war started by Jimmy Carter, the wonderful liberal, and then carried through with Reagan. The wonderful picture of Donald Rumsfeld, who also should be brought up on war criminal charges, giving golden spurs to Saddam Hussein to fight the war.
Yeah.
You have insane people that are running the planet, and people are following them. And this is what's troubling me the most, is how do people, as I mentioned the story about my going to Germany, how could the Germans allow a two-bit freak like Hitler to destroy their country?
Sure.
And you have them right here, you have them over here, you have them too. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
And the people bow to this power. And the way they do it, by the way, it's all show. They have red carpets, they have the paparazzi, the media, they have them roped off. They have motorcades, they have people waving, they have saluting. It's all a show to make them think that your mother's better than theirs.
Yeah. Beautiful. On a final personal note, I wanted to know what your Aunt Sissy did when you're mentioning, you're showing your beautiful picture of your family. What did she do? She seemed to have had an influence on you.
Well, I wrote a book actually in 2000. It's called When Zizzy Gave Honey Boy 2002. And it took, I wrote it with that photo that I had of, I used to travel a lot back and forth to the city. I lived up in Rhinebeck at the time, which is about an hour and a half north of the city. She lived in Yonkers. And I was going back and forth to the city maybe every 2 weeks. And her husband had died, Uncle Al, and I just gotten divorced. And so I used to make it a trip to go see her and play Scrabble with her. So one day I go there. She always wanted to cook for me. She could hardly walk. She had severe phlebitis, but she would always cook for me. So one day I go in there, and all these dishes piled up. So the television's blaring, and I start cleaning the dishes. So I sit down. She says, "My guest. You're not going to wash my dishes." I didn't wash the dishes. I said, "Will you lower that damn thing?" She said, "You know, I've been listening to the news all day today. What a bunch of shit. You must think we're all morons."
Yeah.
And that's what inspired me to write the book.
Yeah.
I stopped what I was doing and I wrote it down. I always write down things.
Yeah.
And so the book is about what life used to be and how this country was so different and then what it's become.
Mm-hmm.
So I have in it, photos from, the old times. And it was a whole different spirit.
Yeah. Different
There's no
energy.
spirit anymore.
Yeah.
What does the youth of today have to do to ensure that have the balls to do something?
One of my biggest fan base is the youth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
There are a lot of young people who want to do things to change things.
There's a lot of young people who say they want to change, but how about the people that actually want
It's
to change?
always a little bit. But here's my belief. It doesn't take a lot. I call it the 20% solution. You look at the few people that are changing the direction in this way. That's all you need the other way. So you knock it down from 10 and bring it to 20, bring it to 10, bring it to 5. If you have 5 and it's powerful, you could change the course. My line is, I didn't say it up here, I forgot. In this New Trends Journal, I write about how can you follow these two-bit freaks, and I won't vote for a lesser of two evils. And as I mentioned, what they do is they set this up to make you think that they're better than you are. And so my line is that if Clinton can, if Bush can, if Obama can, if Romney can, then you can, and I can, unless you think their mother's better than yours. And speaking only for myself, they're not superior to me, and so we keep it polite, let's just say we're equal.
Very good.
And when people have that, and stop looking up to people and thinking they're wiser and better than they are, that could bring the change. And the change is only going to happen from the youth. Because my generation's spent. They don't have it. And I'm in a unique position because, I'm flying solo here. I was married a long time, but I have no kids. I'm not holding on to anything. I have a definition, by the way, of hell. And, You know, being not everybody I love is dead. You know, all my aunts, uncles, everybody, no kids. My definition of hell, and again, I'm only speaking for myself, is taking that last breath of life and knowing that you lied to yourself and you're not the person who you said you were. So I don't want to go out like that. And I think with a lot of people, there are a lot of great. The future is with the young people that have it in their soul, because they have that energy and they're really smart. They know what's going on at a lot of different levels. So I'm actually encouraged by that.
What needs to be done to the governments in order to make a change? How can the world be affected?
Again, it's like what I said. The collective consciousness changes when the individual consciousness changes. When you really know that, are you doing the best you can really do the best you really can? A good friend of mine, Sonny Rollins, a jazz saxophone, gave me a quote from a Dizzy book, by the way. He's 83 now. Practices every day. You got to practice every day. And when you keep going to the higher levels and you reach them within yourself, you don't settle for mediocrity. So to me, that's the only way I see it changing, is when the individuals change. And that's why I say it's time for new thinking and new directions and a new age, not a airbrush unicorns. But
how would you influence robots? People that have become robots?
you can't. You only could do what you can do. And then you keep doing enough of that, you're going to lose them. They don't count anyway. They're going to drink phosphorescent Slurpees if you market it right. You don't need them. They're only going to follow. And guess what? They'll follow good just like they'll follow bad, is my belief.